Okay, good morning. As I was saying, we used to put our videos on freeconferencecall.com, and you had to go over to freeconferencecall.com to play them back. Well, I finally made the jump over to YouTube, and I've moved, I don't know, dozens of videos out there. So the thing that I just placed in the chat field is, and I'll show it to you right now, that's the link to what's known as It's Rhetorical in YouTube, and that is our CS-Sensei group. It's Rhetorical is my email address in case you've ever emailed me. It's rhetorical@gmail.com. By the way, if you search hard, you can always find good Gmail addresses. I found that address about 2 years ago. So they all aren't stolen by somebody, taken by somebody in Singapore or whatever. You can still find, reasonable Gmail addresses instead of, TommyJohn2025512. You don't need all that stuff. But I've put, I don't know, like maybe 30 or 40 of our videos out there from our prior sessions. And I'm just going to pull one up here, Amazon and Microsoft support calls. All right, so let me stop this. And if you look down here, it says, here is the description of the topics that we cover in each of these sessions. So if you want to go take a look at a particular video, you can go back. Let me back it up here and click in here and see least privilege and search, and there you can find videos, for example. So if you're looking for particular topics or whatever, just go to the YouTube channel and you can search right here, not up here. If you search up there, you're out in YouTube land and you'll get 1,000 videos. And I will admit, some of them are tremendous. But if you want to search within a channel, search down here. And you can find anything that you're interested in. Also, I have one playlist put together so far, and it's about everything that we've done specific to federal jobs. Okay, so if you want to look at that one, I'm going to view the playlist. It says Federal Job Searches Part 2, Wide Net Federal Vacancy Announcements. That's where I talked about where they said, we're hiring large numbers, or the vacancy announcement was open for a year, or they said you can choose your location, or location is negotiable after selection is made, those sorts of things. In other words, not just very specific, we need somebody sitting on the 9th floor in Chicago, nothing like that. These are wide net. In other words, they're trying to capture as many people as they can so that they can make their selections from a larger group. And that's where you can sneak in on a lot of these, because sometimes, and I'll just say this quickly, sometimes these wide net announcements are for positions that are hard to fill. Like, and I gave the example of Beckley, West Virginia. What's out in Beckley? And yet they hire IT specialists out there for a couple different federal groups, one of which is quite large. Okay, locations in your federal job search. If you're in Northern Virginia, you should search Alexandria City. You should search Arlington City. You should search Arlington County, and you should search Northern Virginia, and then just for fun, put one out for nationwide and see if there's one nationwide that says it's in Virginia. So those are the way to maximize your location searches. So I did security classifications and then raises and promotions. What happens in the federal civil service system that governs how you're going to get promoted. And the main takeaway in that one is you can't stay in one position easily. You can't stay in one position and get promoted. in civil service, you need to move around. Now, if you're happy being where you're at, don't expect to get promoted. You know, you're like, oh, I really like being this. So what the government does to get you promoted is they'll create another position and then ask you to apply for it. That is a promotion. It may be similar, it may be in the same branch or whatever, but they just sort of shift you around. They have to justify making that extra position. And I've actually watched positions being created that were specifically designed for someone. In other words, this person's been here so long, we really do need to do something for this person, so they create positions. That has occurred. I've watched it occur. And it's part of growth. You know, if the whole group is growing, we can place things so that our people can get to them and keep growing. The federal government does do that. They are allowed to do that, but they never say, we're creating a position for you. They can't say that. That's called preferential, and any sort of such selection is against the law. But what they do is they can put things together to where all you got to do is apply. You are a known asset. They know exactly what your capabilities are. You've indicated where you want to go. In other words, they know that not only will they be able to select you in an objective competition, but also that will cause you to remain with them for a longer period of time, because the government is actually fulfilling your career ambitions. So that's what that one is all about, raises and promotions. So please, if you would, share this channel, this YouTube channel, with other people, so that they will also be able to go through and take a look at some of these. And you know, some of the names are a little difficult to. Oh, there's an interesting one. I could have put that in. Anyway, like one says, you are the commodity. Well, what does that mean? Well, that's why you have to drill down and read it a little bit. Okay, any questions on that before we move on?
Scotty, just a comment.
Mm-hmm.
That list of qualities that the government agencies look for, I would include a love for learning, a continuous love for learning as well.
Yeah.
They eat that up, they love it, they spit it out, and that's a good thing to have as well.
Yeah. I remember we've had numerous. Thank you, Chris. We've had numerous conversations with mentees, and I will say that the overall attitude that you should be projecting is one of you're pretty confident in yourself, not cocky. I've been in meetings where, you know, the guy would basically walk in and say, I got this. Well, you know, guess what? You don't decide that. I decide that. You know, so be careful. But be confident in your own abilities, and like Chris said, show that you enjoy doing this. It's not just techies talking to techies. Oh yeah, we're going to talk about that CISO article as well from HP. I'm going to tell you in all truthfulness, I read 3 sentences from that article, and I said, I know exactly what she's doing. I know exactly how she's going to format this whole discussion, and I tossed it out to the team. I was sitting in an emergency room while I was doing that with my sister, and I said, oh yeah, this is a good one. Because what... Okay, yeah, we'll go straight to that and talk about it. I'm going to stop sharing this screen so that we can all be online here. Yeah, that HP CISO said, you know how we reduce risk? I'm like, what? A CISO led off an article with, how do we reduce risk? Hey, that is cool. had nothing to do with technology. You know, we've got the threat, we've got the technology, and no, she was like, how do we reduce risk? Well, we should do this with HR, and we should do this with our policies, and yeah, great. She is absolutely talking what's called the executive level, or C-suite, as in CEO, CIO, CISO, CFO, the person with the money. She's talking at the C-suite level so that they can all understand. And the one thing that I will just repeat to you is, if there is a definite need for something, a program, a reorganization, some sort of a campaign, or new tools or talent or whatever, and you are bringing it up to a group and they don't get it, guess whose fault it is? It's not theirs. It's the person who's bringing the message. So always practice to be able to communicate technical things to non-technical people. Always. That will get you so far in your careers. I'm going to give an example. I'll go one of my war stories. I was in the Pentagon working a help desk, and I was one of the call center guys. We literally had a call center right in the middle of our help desk area, and I was working the call center at that time. And we had, like this, we had headsets, but they had really long cords, like 10, 15, 20-foot cords with coiled springs here, so we could walk around, you know, go over here and check this while we're on the phone with somebody, and they wouldn't know, instead of just sitting there, looking at a screen, talking to somebody on a phone. We could do things behind us or over at the next cubicle or whatever while we had time with each other. That also allowed our leadership, our supervisors, to do what's called jacking in. If you've ever been in a call center, it frequently occurs that when you're talking to somebody, there are at least two people listening. One is the person that you're talking to, and the other is their trainer or their direct supervisor or a quality person. But there's the capability for what's called jacking in. And back in the day, back in the 90s when I was there, down here next to where my headset plugged in was another set of headset jacks. And somebody could walk along with their jack and go, and they were in the conversation as well. They would be muted. Remember, it always says these conversations may be recorded for training and quality purposes. That's what that's for, because they are in a constant level of training. So don't be surprised if you start to get a little testy with your help desk person and all of a sudden somebody else pops on. That could occur. So anyway, I was talking to a senior executive, literally somebody who, you know, had to, their position had to be approved by Congress. And in the Pentagon, this person was a very high-level person, and he was having trouble. And, you know, I was listening to it, and I was basically understanding that he was trying to get something done, but I would try and give instructions. In other words, this was escalated to me. Somebody else tried to help him, so and they were unable to. So he was already frustrated. He didn't want to do anything over the phone. He was sort of like, send somebody out. No, I think we can get this done in a few seconds if we can, you know, work on it. Otherwise, you got to wait 5-10 minutes for us to dispatch somebody to come down to you. You know, tell you what, we'll dispatch somebody, but in the meantime, let's try this on the phone, okay? And he said, okay. So I'm talking to him, and I'm doing stuff with him, and I'm pacing back and forth behind this line of call center guys. And I happened to be on the call center with a guy who moonlighted at AOL. In other words, he would finish in the Pentagon, drive out to AOL's headquarters, and do call center there as well. And I finished up with this senior executive, got everything working for him, and I said, thanks very much for your patience with me. Have a great day. And he said, yeah, you too. Hung up the phone, and I turned, and this guy from AOL was like, I said, what? He said, do you know what you were just doing? I said, I guess I don't. He said, it sounded like this guy was a senior executive, and you were talking to him and calling it Mr. Mouse and Mr. Keyboard. And I said, well, it resonated with him. I had to bring it down to the somewhat simplistic level, and he seemed to eat it up. He became receptive when we did it that way, and it became a bit of a game, and we got it done. So when you are communicating, and I'm trying to go to where you need to be able to communicate technical subjects in a non-technical way. I did that by making it into a game. And that is actually a training concept called gamification, and it does work. So practice, like talking to your wife or your spouse or your friends or whatever, and they're like, oh, how'd your day go? Oh, well, we had this firewall rule set change that was really throwing me. What? They're going to be like, okay, have a nice day. So practice speaking on complex issues using simple terms. One thing I prided myself while I was actually a certified trainer, technical trainer for the Air Force, and I went through like 5 different courses. It was 160 hours of training. So it was 4 weeks of training to become a certified technical trainer. And when I was done, one of the things that I tried to do well at that time was teach something and learn to teach the exact same thing 6 different ways. In other words, if you're talking to somebody and you're using particular terminology and somebody still doesn't get it, change your terminology. You don't have to speak slower. You don't have to speak louder. Sometimes people think that, well, maybe if I, hammer it into you, you'll get it better. Well, change the verbiage. So learn to say the same thing in a couple different ways. And that CISO from HP, I just skimmed through the article and I said, this person is able to speak in a manner that anybody can understand. And this is the Chief Information Security Officer for Hewlett-Packard. That says something. That person has talent. And that's what you want. You want somebody to sit in a meeting with you or work on a project with you or be on a tiger team with you, or whatever you want to call it, a TAC team, I think they've been called as well. But you want them to depart saying, wow, remember your name with lots of good stuff around it. And it may not be cybersecurity stuff. It may be this person gets stuff done in a meeting. This person doesn't sit and take up all the time in the meeting talking about something that they think is important to them. Balance your time with everybody else. Find ways to interact so that they feel valuable and you feel valuable, and everybody departs knowing that it was a good meeting. You know, for example, that, by the way, is also the heart of a mentor. I have been mentoring people for decades, and frequently they come to me. This is, I think, the first time I've gone out and said a mentorship is being opened if anybody wants to come. Usually my mentees come to me, and I'm honored each time somebody asks me, will you mentor me? Because it shows that they have so much trust in my abilities to speak to them and help to encourage them, that they want to use me as part of their career objectives. And sometimes a mentor is a frustrating thing, but sometimes a mentor is a greatly rewarding thing. So I would like to say that in all this stuff that we're doing here, maybe I'm training new mentors. I'm at least showing you the best way to do it, the best way I know of to do it. Chris, did you have anything before we move on?
You hit the nail on the head, Scotty. It's the communication aspect versus the technical aspect. It's great to know the technical side, but to explain it to the user end, who their eyes will glaze over when you start talking about Linux and kernel and go deeper into the weeds about it. My wife would, if I talk to my wife a lot, and my wife is a very intelligent human. I sometimes forget that she's an intelligent human. So the comment I would like to make here is, you got to know who your audience is and know who the person you're talking to. And the first step to that is talking to them and getting to know them. Taking that extra minute to say, how do they function? How do they tick? And then help them out where they can understand what you're talking about. My best example is just yesterday, I had a ticket. And I read the ticket.
By the way, that's not a speeding ticket. That's a
help desk
ticket.
Thank you, Scotty. That's the whole theme of what we're talking about here. I had a service desk ticket on my queue. On the queue is basically a list of things to do. And one of my things to do was to approve a software that a customer's asking for. And the customer has been hitting help desk going, we need this, we need this, we need this. The issue we had on our end was they didn't have enough information for us to approve it. I'll leave it as that. I looked at the customer's profile, and I can see when they're online and when they're not online. He was gone for Friday. I looked up his supervisor. His supervisor was in a meeting, had a do not disturb sign presenting, and I go, I can't break into that meeting. That's rude and evil. So I set up a meeting for everybody on that service desk ticket, find that first opening, and said, hey, I want to talk to you about this ticket. And all it took was one little person to come back and go, hey, Chris, we meant to do this. And I go, that's fixable. Change the thing, press the approve button. And all you had to do was reach out. You can't be afraid to reach out and talk to people. But it turns a ticket that seems like it's going to be 30 days into 5 minutes just to reach out.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you, and I'll be a little bit vulnerable here, I do suffer from a little social anxiety, and trying to reach out to people, it just gives me that icky feeling. But to work in the IT, cybersecurity, information assurance industry, the stereotype of the quiet guy who has his hood and just typing on the computer and just doing what they do, that's a complete myth. You go into the business world with it, you got to reach out and talk to people, because if you don't, you're not going to get anything done, and things just stay long than they need to be, and business does not just get done. off the soapbox about that, but learning communication skills and learning public speaking and learning interpersonal speaking is probably the best skill, hands down, over technical skills.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, excellent. Which brings up another thing. If you, let me phrase this so it doesn't sound like I'm trying to hammer on anything. Let's say you're working with your buddies, because sometimes we develop friendships at work and everything. And I'm going to share the screen. I just went to images.google.com and brought this up, but I think it brings something to the point here. There's a phrase that says, business is business. And so, and this one I think was great because it says, friendship is friendship, business is business. If we're talking on a friendship level, certain things may be able to get done, but don't go as a friend and try and get me on a business sort of thing. In other words, if you're my friend and you ask me to invest in your business, but it's not a good business investment, if I choose not to invest in your business, that doesn't mean I'm a bad friend. It just means I'm a good business person. So just remember in your conversations when you're at work that business is why you're there. You were brought in, they went out and they searched for you, you sent them your resume. You did not send them a resume that says, I'm your friend. All right? So when you are at work, then you should walk into a room and people should understand that you're not buddies with anybody. You've heard numerous places talk about like the corporate mafia or whatever, and that's a whole group of people that tend to keep all the business within themselves and make their own requests for services within themselves and that sort of thing. They call it a mafia. Well, be careful about being in groups like that, because then you become associated with that entire group. And there may be people in that group that are not helpful, that are not good workers, that are not friendly, that are not, let me just say this, not very ethically based. But then they expect you to do stuff because we're friends. Well, I'm sorry, but I'm not hired here to be your friend. I can remember I had conversations with numerous folks, and they're basically like, well, how can you do this to me? I mean, what do you mean? You broke our rules. I have to do something to put you on a performance improvement plan or whatever, and it has nothing to do with, good morning, Harminder. It has nothing to do with our friendship. Our friendship is one thing, but you broke the rules. And just be aware that you can function in a business fashion very ethically and go home in the afternoon and feel comfortable about what you've done without trying to be everyone's friend. I'm pretty certain that when I walk into a room, most of the people in the room who know me understand that I'm there to get work done. They don't say, oh, hey, there's Scotty. Hey, how about last night's football game? And, oh, yeah, those guys killed those guys. And, oh, yeah, but what about those guys? And how about that new sportsbook application or whatever? No, I'm there to get business done. Oh, what about, we're neighbors and our lawns, and no, we'll talk about that later, but right now I'm here for business, whatever. So try and have that business mindset. You can be friendly, absolutely friendly. Remember, I said a good meeting is where everyone departs knowing that they contributed. You know, that their contribution to that meeting was heard. If somebody walks into meetings, sits and listens to everybody and walks back out, why were they there? You know, that's another thing about my training here. I'm sorry, my mentoring here. I always ask for inputs. I want you to share. I'm here to try and help you tune up your attitude. Hey, Harminder, you have something?
I have a question, sorry.
Sure.
Okay. I understand that when we are working in a business, our main focus is to try to finish our job and do our job, but to want to make our workplace little bit cheerful, then I know where I am working, people talk little bit about how was the weekend, what you did, little bit, not too much. So that's it.
Absolutely. There's nothing wrong with, you know, side chatter or anything like that. That's how business friendships are developed. You should always be working to build your network. Always. And what I mean by that is, if you want to think about it, the number of people that you have liked on LinkedIn, that is your network.
Okay.
All right? So always, you want to be viewed as somebody who is helpful, somebody who is supportive, somebody who is who knows their job. There are people who are really, really nice, but haven't got a lick of sense. You know, okay, great, fine. I don't want them in my meetings. You know, they're nice. Yay! You know, they bring flowers to work or whatever. Okay, but they don't get their job done. There are also people who are so, and we suffer from this, techies, we suffer from this. They're so technically centric that they lose some of their communication skills, interpersonal communication skills. A true IT person must have both. I'll give this example. I've given it before. I went to interview somebody for a vacancy I had. It was a system engineer that I was going to be hiring in the Pentagon, and this guy came highly recommended. He came from within my branch, if you will, in the particular contracting company that I was with, and he was listen to this. He was recommended to me by my supervisor. Okay, so yeah, it's like almost the vice president saying, you know, you really ought to hire this person. But I interviewed this guy, and you know, first of all, he was highly technical. But when we got into a conversation, I started to put some situational stuff to him and found out that this guy doesn't like customers. And you know, he likes doing stuff, but he doesn't want to be around customers. I told him that because we were a small team, hey, Harminder, I muted him. I said, because we're a small team, you may have to jump back and forth between project completion and customer service mode, sometimes multiple times throughout the day. In other words, I'm working on this. I have to get this done by 2 weeks from now. I've got a lot of work to do. The phone's ringing. Okay. Help this customer, make him happy, great. Get back here, you know, get back to work again. Oh, the phone's ringing again, you know, and then the phone keeps ringing, then the phone keeps ringing, then the phone keeps ringing, and I can't get back to my, you know, I'm responsible to get this done. Well, I placed that stressor in his mind. And when I did, out came his statement that he said, you know, at times customers can be annoying. And I will tell you, when he said that, the entire rest of the interview, I didn't hear a word.
Yeah.
Because I was able to go back to my vice president, the director, and say, I'm not hiring him. My team is too volatile. We are talking to too many people who, if you don't do things exactly right, they're going to throw stuff at you as you head out the door. I don't want anybody upsetting that. I want somebody, and I've had people that walk into an office, don't get stuff done, and yet still have the customers thanking him when he leaves. The reason is he's highly communicative. He tells them exactly what he's doing. He tells them exactly what the situation is so they understand it. And he tells them when he's going to contact them next for the next step of the way. And as he's leaving, they're like, man, thank you. And he didn't get the job done because there was still stuff to do. But they felt like they were part of their own solution. And they knew exactly what he was doing, not, I'll get back to you, or whatever. So that interpersonal communication is an absolute art. You have to learn it. You can be the best techie, well, like this guy was. He was probably one of the best systems engineers we had in the company, and I didn't bring him onto my team because he said customers are annoying, and I'm like, you've got to be joking me. Bye. Go back to your other team where you were. You know, have fun. We'll see you at the Christmas party. He was a nice guy, but I was hiring for the business, and the business required, you know, a high level of interpersonal communications, not a high level of technical stuff and, you know, I'll worry about customers later. No, you'll worry about customers now. I have a phrase that I've sort of developed over the years, and it has tended to prove itself true, at least to me, and that is that if everything in the infrastructure is working beautifully, if the systems, if the services, if the infrastructure equipment, everything seems to be working well, you've got good systems that work, your phones, your internet speed, whatever, everything that you're supposed to be doing to facilitate your customers works, and yet your customers don't like you and they're mad at you at the service desk, you're not doing service desk right. And they think that the whole IT structure sucks. You are the face, well, for us, the group that we're with, you are the face of OCIO when you talk to your customers. When you speak, they're, and I've had this happen, they're thinking these are the CIO's people. And I've had people contact the CIO to give that person feedback on my team's performance. From the phone call of my whatever doesn't work straight to the CIO. Why? The CIO always maintains an open door policy, remember? And sometimes people exercise that. So you want to have people leave your meetings, leave your conversations, leave your calls, leave your support environment, you know, you're together for a reason. You want them to depart that feeling good about themselves and about you. And you can do that with them. So help them. Help build them up. Help make them feel good. And it's not about cracking jokes. It's about seeing the person, not the work. And there's another thing that I do during interviews. Well, I guess we can talk about it now. During interviews, especially at the service desk, we have a set of questions that we ask. It's kind of a situational question that we found is a great discriminator between a helpful person, in other words, somebody who cares that I'm helping a human being, and a technical person who wants to get the issue fixed. And it has to do with a printer error. You know, somebody, it's the last part of the day, and somebody's getting this printer error 10 minutes, 5 minutes before a critical meeting. They've got to get slides printed out, and they get this stupid printer error. And, you know, they're you know, whatever, down the hall from you or whatever, they're getting this printer error, and they've got to get these slides printed. What do? You know, the technical person will say, well, what is the error? You know, have you rebooted your computer? Have you, you know, blah, 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 blah. And the way you add to this is you say, okay, it's now 4 minutes till their critical meeting, and they're starting to say bad words. And then, okay, and they're like, okay, well, have you tried pinging the printer? Or, okay, it's now 3 minutes before the meeting, and they're saying bad things about your mother. You know, you build the tension, and the proper answer is, what did the customer need? The technical person will say they needed their printer fixed. But that is not what the need was. Anybody tell me, what did the customer need? Anybody? The customer needed the slides printed before the meeting. Your thought immediately goes to fix the printer.
Mm-hmm.
But there are other alternatives. And it is a wonderful discriminator, because sometimes the technical person says printer, 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 and they drive it into the ground on the printer, forgetting that you can still make the customer uproariously happy by saying, there's a printer right next to it, send me the slides, I'll print to that one, or whatever, you know. Even if it takes me to, you know, print the stuff and run it down the hall to you or whatever, we'll worry about the printer at some point, yes. But the main thing is slides now. There is more than one way to get slides now. You know? So what you do is, if you can do that, you turn from being part of my problem to being a superhero that has just saved my bacon. Same printer. See what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So always be listening for what the success is here. And the success isn't always fix the printer. Okay? We do that. I've watched it in dozens of interviews. And that technical person will just grab a hold of the throat of that printer issue and try and wrestle it to the ground, while you're basically saying, okay, we're now down to 3 minutes. We're, you know, and they're getting really upset, and they're saying, you're threatening to call the CIO. You know, they're saying we're going to be ruined, and, you know, I gotta, you know, help them get what they need done, which may or may not be a technical solution. And then you become the superhero. It's fun being able to do that. It's fun because they will say great things about you when you leave the office, instead of really bad things about you when you hang up the phone. Chris?
What is the dividing line between customer delight and following your policies.
Mm-hmm.
If, let's say, a customer wants to do something,
Yep.
but it's totally anti what the policy is.
Right. Right. If the
What's
customer
the best approach on that?
the customer is there asking you to do something technical for them, and I've seen this occur too. They'll say, "Oh, I need this plugin installed in my Excel." Okay, what are you trying to do here? You know, you have to agree with the solution, and they have to agree with the solution. This is not a case of doing everything the customer wants to make them happy. You have a part to play because the customers aren't expected to know everything technically. You are. So when you're talking with a customer or even another service provider, but in your area of expertise, let's say information security, and they're talking about your appliance or whatever. Let's say you're doing Wi-Fi security, and you're responsible for that, and they're saying, well, I need to get, you know, I need to get my Samsung device to work. Well, they are asking if it's possible first, because it's your area of expertise. And you should never be somebody who compromises simply because you were asked to, which gets to our code of ethics. Our code of ethics, in fact, I will share that right now. It's a good way for us to segue into that. I think everybody on this team should know that we have a code of ethics for CS-Sensei. And if you are on this group and you claim to be, you know, learning and listening and being mentored by Chris and I and any other mentors that we bring in, you agree to this code of ethics. If you don't agree to this code of ethics, I'm not going to tell anybody that you were here. Okay? So be thinking about that. The code of ethics says that I'm going to do everything, you know, legally, morally, ethically proper, and in a manner that will result in no jeopardy to my employer. So it's always your responsibility to make sure that the conversation stays ethically right. And there could be a technical solution that the customer wants, that all you have the capability to do this. All you have to do is flip a switch. And that's the point where you say, I can do this, but should I do this? All right? Even when the customers come in and they say, that's all I need you to do, I'll let you get back to your work, whatever. They are trying to get you to do what they think is the best solution, but you have a part to play in that. And your decision should always be based on like a code of ethics that drives you. When you're sitting there with your supervisor, you know, a day or two or three later, and whatever, you know, the infrastructure is smoldering after having collapsed, and the customer that loved you yesterday hates you today, and your supervisor sits you down and says, what happened? The answer that you give them should not be, well, they asked for me to do this. That's not going to go over well at all. You are the technical professional. You are expected to agree with the solution before you start clicking the mouse. It's always your decision. And I have, been around people. I've watched this. I've been in a room full of, let's say, cyber engineers. And there are some that sit with each other, and there are some that sit by themselves, and there are some that sort of associate with each other. But you will find that they tend to kind of clump together. Yes, you'll talk to each other, but you'll find that certain people have certain attitudes that tend to gravitate them towards each other. Pay attention to those dynamics, because you'll find that the people who are just there to do a job tend to gravitate to each other, and they don't get called off to meetings.
Mm.
They just do their job.
Mm.
Do you want to be around them? Nah. I want to be the type of person that they say, I need this person, the asset, to help make decisions. We're going to talk about something big. We're doing a new program. We have some ideas. We've got a situation. We're trying to cut funding or whatever. I need you in the decision maker meeting, not sitting over here doing your job. So the dynamics are at all levels. You've got to be a master of dynamics. And when you do that, when you can sit, and I can go into a room, I believe I can go into a room and converse with anybody about a topic and help them feel better about themselves about it. But watch who I go to the most, and you'll find the assets in the room, because I've identified them. I know what they're capable of. I don't waste their time. I make sure that our conversations are positive for all concerned. I don't sit next to them and say, yeah, but what if we do this? And how about if we do this? And maybe we should do this. And, and they're like, sure, whatever you want. Follow your dynamics. Read the people. I guess that's the main thing in all of this. IT, the entire IT field, including cybersecurity, it runs on personalities, but personalities don't run it. Let me phrase that properly. If somebody's says do it because I say to do it, look for another job. If they are bringing you in and asking for your thoughts on the matter, that's a good thing. They are trying to help you become part of the solution, not part of the issue. You're not just part of the workforce anymore. You are now someone who has a part to play in the answers. So don't be afraid to speak up. I've been in meetings full of, high-level executives, like the Tom Clancy movies with, the whatever that guy's name is that ended up Harrison Ford, whatever those movies are, where I go into meetings and it's like, I don't think that's going to work. What do you mean it's not going to work? That's why you're there. You are there to try and help make sure that the decisions are made, but that the decisions are going to be business-oriented and successful. Anything else? Anything else? Please, guys, if you have a chance, go read this Code of Ethics. I pasted it to the top of our Facebook page. I am very serious about it. If you are not approaching cybersecurity from a white hat perspective, I won't hire you. I don't care how much of a buddy you are. I don't care how much coffee you buy in the morning for the whole room. Doesn't matter to me. I don't want gray hats. I don't want somebody who could end up being my worst enemy if I fire them. Business is business. White hats understand that. anyway, so that's been our hour, believe it or not. Anybody have anything before we finish up? Again, as a reminder, please send your friends, neighbors, relatives, whatever to this channel, and please subscribe. As soon as we hit 100 subscribers, as you notice right now we have 14 subscribers, as soon as we hit 100 subscribers, I can change that channel name to something that's not so ghastly like this. I can change it to, for example, youtube.com/itsrhetorical. or CS-Sensei or something like that. They will give me the option to change the channel name as soon as we reach 100 subscribers. So if you can help me get to there, the faster we get there, the easier it will be to name this channel at YouTube. So, all right, that's it. Thanks, everybody. I had a great time. I wasn't exactly certain what we were going to talk about today. Chris and I knew we were going to talk about that HP CISO, and we were going to talk about the code of ethics. But this thing sort of picked up a life of its own, and it's fun. I enjoy some of these things.
Yeah, this was really good. This was really good.
Yeah. Again, you can be in a meeting and be 100% technical, and people are still ignoring you, and you're like, what? It's because you don't have that interpersonal side going. So strengthen both. Learn to be a good person, for lack of a better way.
I'll provide guidance to help with that. Don't be afraid to go to the conferences in your area about cybersecurity topics. Start talking. Start posting articles after you read them and provide your executive summary. And then when people like or comment, put comments to there. Start interacting back and forth. Also, Scotty's idea of talking to your spouse and your family members or a good friend, take the technical side and try to do a non-technical conversation with them and make them help them out with learning the technical side.
Hey guys, I got a phone call. Got to run.
Bye, guys.
Thanks everybody.